which 12 dumb golf shots are quietly adding 8 to 12 strokes to your score every single round. That is not a clickbait number. Arccos Golf, the shot tracking system that has logged over 500 million amateur shots, publishes the data every year. The average 15 handicap loses 8 to 12 strokes per round to decisions, not swings. 8 to 12. That is the difference between shooting 90 and shooting 80 on the same exact swing you already have. I went back through my last 30 rounds on my Arccos log and counted how many shots I lost to the same 12 mistakes. It was painful reading. I am going to walk you through all 12, give you the fix for each one in plain English, and tell you which ones cost the most. Stay until the end because there is one decision rule a teaching pro in Scottsdale gave me that, if you only remember one thing from this video, will save you 3 strokes by your next round. It takes 5 seconds to apply and most amateurs have never heard it. Number 1. The Hero 3-wood from a bad lie in thick rough. You know this shot. You are 220 yards out. Your ball is sitting in 3 inches of Bermuda rough, and you pull the 3-wood because the green is right there and you can see it. Your brain has already played the highlight reel where it lands on the front edge and rolls up. Here is what actually happens. The 3-wood has roughly 15 degrees of loft, about the angle of a closed laptop lid. From thick rough, that loft is too low to lift the ball cleanly over the grass. The face arrives with grass wrapped between the ball and the club face, which kills compression and adds backspin in unpredictable directions. The result is usually a low knuckleball that travels 110 yards and sits 90 yards short of where you needed it. Your scratch buddy would not even consider this shot. He would pull a 7-iron, advance it in 40 yards down the fairway, and give himself an 80-yard wedge from a perfect lie. The fix is a math problem you do in 3 seconds. If the lie is thick enough that you cannot see the bottom third of the ball, no club longer than a 6-iron leaves the bag. That is the rule. The 6-iron has 30 degrees of loft, roughly the angle of a kitchen cabinet door cracked open, which is enough to get the ball up and out of the grass with the face still relatively clean at impact. You give up 50 yards of carry, you gain 40 yards of accuracy. The math is in your favor every single time. Number 2, the chunked wedge from 40 to 60 yards. This is the worst distance in golf and it is not close. Inside 30 yards you use a putting stroke with loft. From 75 yards out, you take a normal full swing with a gap wedge. But the 40 to 60 yard range falls in between, and the average amateur tries to solve it by taking a tiny full swing with a sand wedge. The problem is that a partial swing requires you to decelerate, and the human brain hates deceleration. Your subconscious tells your hands to slow down before impact to control distance, and slowing the hands releases the wrist angle early, which adds dynamic loft and moves the low point of your swing behind the ball. You chunk it, every time. Sean Foley, who has coached Tiger Woods and Justin Rose, has talked about this distance being the single biggest gap in amateur skill on tour analyst broadcasts. The fix is to stop taking partial swings and start taking full swings with shorter clubs. From 50 yards, do not take a half sand wedge. Take a full 60-degree lob wedge with a shoulder-high backswing and accelerate through impact. The acceleration is what saves you. The launch angle on a full 60 from 50 yards is roughly 45 degrees, about the angle of a steep staircase, and the ball lands soft and stops quickly. Same distance, different swing, way better contact. My personal carry chart on my phone says my 60 goes 65 yards with a shoulder-high backswing, my 56 goes 50, and my 52 goes 35. Build that chart for yourself at the range one Saturday, and the 40 to 60 yard problem disappears forever. Number 3, the bladed bunker shot that flies the green into worse trouble. Greenside bunkers are the most psychologically miserable place in golf for high handicaps because the rules feel inverted. You are told to not hit the ball, you are told to hit the sand 2 inches behind it, you are told to swing hard and accelerate, all while your brain is screaming that this is the worst possible idea. So your survival instinct takes over. You try to lift the ball with the leading edge instead of letting the bounce of the wedge do the work. The leading edge catches the equator of the ball, and you blade it. The ball leaves the bunker at roughly the height of your knees, traveling at 80 miles per hour, and lands in the bunker on the far side of the green. You now have 2 bunker shots to a green you should have already been putting on. The fix is what every teaching pro in the world has said, and what almost no amateur actually does. Open the face of the wedge before you take your grip, not after. If you take a normal grip and then rotate the face open, your hands fight the open face all the way through impact, and you square it up at the bottom. You blade it. If you open the face first, then take your grip on the already open face, your hands stay neutral, and the bounce works the way it was designed. The bounce of a sand wedge, roughly 10 to 14 degrees on most modern wedges, about the angle of the back of a folding chair when it is partially leaned back, is what skips through the sand instead of digging into it. I avoided learning this for 8 years because the open face setup looks weird and feels wrong. I avoided it for 8 years. The cost of stubbornness in golf is measurable and it is high. Number 4. The defensive lag putt that comes up 8 feet short every time. Putting data is the most lopsided data in golf, and most amateurs do not know it. From 30 feet, a Tour Pro 3 putts roughly 4% of the time. The average 15 handicap 3 putts roughly 28% of the time. That gap is not stroke quality. That gap is speed. Specifically, it is the amateur habit of leaving every lag putt below the hole and short. Your brain processes a 30-foot putt as a scary distance, so it defaults to a defensive stroke. You make a backswing that is too short and a follow-through that is even shorter, and the ball dies 8 feet before the hole. Now you have an 8-foot comeback, and 8-footers are converted at around 50% by the average amateur, according to multiple strokes gained datasets. So your 30-foot putt is now a coin flip for bogey. The transformative idea here is one that took me a year to fully accept. Putting is not a line problem. It is a speed problem. The right line at the wrong speed misses 6 feet. The wrong line at the right speed misses by 6 inches. Aim to roll every lag putt 18 inches past the hole, roughly the length of your putter shaft. If you miss, you have an 18-inch comebacker, which converts at over 95% for almost every golfer alive. Practice this with one drill at the practice green. Drop 5 balls from 30 feet. The goal is not to make any of them. The goal is to have all 5 finish within 3 feet of the hole, ideally past it. If you do that, your 3-putt rate drops in half within a month. My Arccos data shows my 3 putts went from 4.1 per round to 1.8 per round in one season after I committed to this. I did not improve my stroke. I changed my target. This is where I disagree with most golf instruction. Everyone tells you to slow down and read more break. The break is not the problem. Your speed is the problem. Speed first, line second, always. Number 5, the driver off the deck on a par 5. There is a specific kind of golfer who pulls the driver out of the bag on a par 5 from 250 yards out on a flat lie and thinks he is about to do something heroic. I have been that golfer. I am embarrassed about it. A modern driver has roughly 9 to 10.5 degrees of loft, about the angle of a phone leaning against a stack of books. From the ground, with no tee, that loft is far too low to launch the ball with the spin and angle it needs. The face of the driver is also designed to make contact with the ball above the equator on a teed shot, which means hitting it off the ground guarantees an upward strike on the lower half of the ball. You either top it or you skip it 60 yards forward like a stone on a pond. The fix is not even slightly complicated. The 3-wood exists for this exact moment. A 3-wood is built with 15 to 16.5 degrees of loft and a flatter sole that is engineered to slide through grass. It launches the ball higher with more spin and stops the ball sooner on the green. If you cannot trust your 3-wood from the deck, hit a hybrid. A 3 hybrid carries about 200 yards for most amateurs and lands soft. You will rarely reach the par 5 and 2 anyway, so the goal is to advance the ball into wedge range with no penalty risk. Driver off the deck for an amateur is a 1 in 30 shot that costs you 3 strokes when it fails, which is about 28 times out of 30. The math has never been in your favor, and it never will be. Number 6. The full swing pitch from 30 yards. This one is closely related to number 2, but it deserves its own slot because the geometry is different. From 30 yards, you do not need a wedge swing. You need a chip and roll. Most amateurs reach for a sand wedge from 30 yards because the distance feels like a wedge distance. The problem is that a full sand wedge swing carries roughly 80 to 90 yards for the average 15 handicap. To make it carry 30, you have to artificially shorten everything and try to control distance with feel, which is the hardest thing to do under any pressure higher than a relaxed range session. From 30 yards, take a 9-iron or an 8-iron, with the ball back in your stance and your hands ahead of the ball. Make a stroke that feels like a long putt. The ball will come off low, land on the front of the green, and roll to the hole. The fix here is a mindset shift more than a mechanics shift. You are not pitching the ball. You are putting it with loft. The amount of land that has to be perfect for this shot to work is roughly the size of a doormat. The amount of land that has to be perfect for a full sand wedge to work is roughly the size of a postage stamp. Pick the bigger target every time. Quick aside. My wife asked me last year why I have 14 clubs in my bag if I only use 4 of them well. I told her I am working on the other 10. She asked how long I have been working on them. I told her about 25 years. She made a face. The face was fair. Number 7. The aggressive flop shot when you have no green to work with. Short-siding yourself is a recoverable mistake. The next decision is what makes it expensive. You are 8 yards off the green, the pin is 6 yards onto the green, and there is no green to land the ball on. The temptation is to attempt the Phil Mickelson flop shot, where you open the 60-degree wedge until it is nearly parallel to the ground and try to hit the ball almost straight up. There is one thing Phil Mickelson does that you do not. He hits roughly 800 flop shots a week. You hit 4 a year and 3 of them are in your driveway with a wiffle ball. The flop shot requires a specific club head speed, combined with a specific face angle, combined with a specific point of contact on the ball. And missing any of those by more than 2 degrees produces either a skull across the green or a chunk that travels 3 feet. The strokes gained math on this is brutal. A bump and run with a putter from off the green, even short-sided, finishes inside 8 feet roughly 60% of the time for an amateur. A flop shot attempted by a 15 handicap finishes inside 8 feet roughly 18% of the time. The right answer is almost always the boring answer. Put it. Bump it with a 7-iron. Chip it with a 56 instead of a 60 and accept that the ball will run 10 feet past the hole. A 10-foot par putt is a better outcome than a 30-foot bogey putt from across the green. Halfway pause. If you have been keeping track, the pattern of these mistakes is starting to show. Almost every one of them is a hero shot that an amateur attempts because it looks fun, not because the math supports it. Tour players attempt hero shots when their data says they have an edge. Amateurs attempt them because they saw a guy on YouTube do it in a slow-motion clip with epic music in the background. The single best swing change you can make is the swing change that happens 5 seconds before you swing. The decision. Number 8. The tee it low driver into the wind. This one is so common I have a stat for it. According to a TrackMan study summarized on PGA Tour Pro Tracker broadcasts and referenced in equipment forums on Golf WRX, teeing the ball low into a headwind actually adds backspin and produces a higher ball flight than teeing it normally. The reason is that a low tee position forces a steeper angle of attack, and a steep attack angle with a driver creates more dynamic loft at the bottom of the swing arc. More loft means more spin. More spin into wind means the ball climbs. You wanted a piercing shot. You produced a balloon. The fix is the opposite of what feels intuitive. Tee the ball at the same height you normally would, or slightly higher, and play it 1 inch further forward in your stance. Roughly the width of 2 golf balls. The forward ball position lets the club head reach the ball on its upswing, which raises the launch angle but reduces spin. High launch and low spin is what you want into the wind, not low launch and high spin. Most amateurs have this backwards and pay for it every time the flag is straight out at them. I had this backwards myself until 5 years ago. I do not fully understand the spin physics at the molecular level, but the launch monitor numbers told the story across roughly 40 swings, and that was enough for me. Number 9. The 5-iron from a fun 75 when you actually carry it 160. This is an ego problem dressed up as a club selection problem. The average 15 handicap carries his 7-iron about 145 yards on a perfect strike and 132 yards on his average strike. The difference between those two numbers is 13 yards. Across every club in the bag, the gap between best day distance and average day distance is about 10 to 15 yards. Most amateurs club themselves for best day distance. Then they wonder why they are short of the green on 90% of approach shots. Arco's data from their full database shows that amateurs miss short of the green on approach shots roughly 67% of the time. 67%. The miss is not direction. The miss is distance, and it is always short. The fix is brutal in its simplicity. Take 1 more club than you think you need. From 175, do not hit your 5-iron. Hit your 4-iron or your 4 hybrid with a smooth 3/4 swing. The smoother swing produces better contact. The higher loft launches the ball at a better angle, and the ball lands on the front of the green instead of in the front bunker. I tested this for 1 full season. I added 1 club to every approach shot. My greens in regulation went from 5.2 per round to 8.4 per round. My scoring average dropped 3 strokes. The cost of this change was $0 and the time it took me to swallow my pride. Number 10. The lob wedge from a tight fairway lie. This is a Category 5 amateur mistake, and I see it every weekend at my home course. The ball is sitting on a perfect tight fairway lie. The pin is 30 yards away. The amateur pulls his 60-degree lob wedge because the situation feels like a finesse situation. The leading edge of a 60-degree wedge sits roughly 2 millimeters off the ground at address, about the thickness of 2 stacked credit cards. From a tight fairway lie, that leading edge has almost no margin. If your low point is even 1 inch behind the ball, you blade it across the green. If your low point is 1 inch ahead of the ball, you take a divot the size of a steak, and the ball comes out dead. From a tight lie with 30 yards to the pin, the highest percentage shot in your bag is an 8-iron bump and run. The 8-iron has roughly 38 degrees of loft and a wider sole, which means the bounce protects you from a slightly fat or thin contact. The ball comes out low, lands short of the green, and rolls to the hole. The acceptable margin of error on a bump and run from a tight lie is roughly the size of a car door. The acceptable margin of error on a lob wedge from the same lie is the size of a smartphone screen. Pick the car door every time. The aim at the pin tee shot on a sucker pin. PGA Tour caddies, according to multiple interviews on the No Laying Up podcast and various Golf Digest features, aim at the actual pin location roughly 30% of the time. The other 70% of the time, they aim their player at the fattest part of the green, which is the center of the largest open landing area on the surface. Amateurs aim at the pin nearly 100% of the time. The cost of this is enormous and almost entirely invisible. Aiming at a pin tucked behind a bunker means that a 10-yard miss puts you in the bunker. Aiming at the center of the green means that the same 10-yard miss puts you 30 feet from the hole on a flat putt. Same shot, swing, same miss. 2 completely different outcomes. The transformative concept here is that approach shots are not aimed at the flag. They are aimed at the center of your dispersion zone. Your dispersion zone is roughly 15 yards wide for irons if you are a typical 15 handicap. So you aim at a spot that puts your entire dispersion zone on the green. That spot is almost never the pin. It is almost always the middle. A scratch player buddy of mine watched me play 9 holes once and told me afterward that I aim 4 yards of that left flat of where I think I aim on every single shot, which combined with my pin hunting tendency meant I was setting up to miss every green into trouble. He was not trying to insult me. He was trying to help. It still stung. I changed my aim point to the center of the green that week and dropped 2 strokes off my average within a month. The fix cost nothing. Number 12, the decelerated 3-foot putt. There is no shot in golf that costs more strokes per occurrence than the missed short putt, and the number one reason short putts miss is deceleration. Most amateurs overread the break on a 3-footer, get tentative, take an abbreviated backswing, and then quit on the follow-through because their brain is afraid of hitting it 6 feet past. The club face opens slightly because the hands are not committed through impact, and the ball misses on the high side. Every time. The fix is one of the most useful drills I have ever learned, and it takes 90 seconds. At the practice green, place a tee 3 feet from a hole. Make 25 putts in a row from that tee. You cannot leave the practice green until you make 25 in a row. If you miss one, you start over. The first time I tried this, it took me 40 minutes. The third time, it took me 12 minutes. The 15th time, it took me 4 minutes. The drill teaches your hands and your eyes that 3 feet is not a scary distance. It is a routine distance. The other half of the fix is technique. On every putt under 5 feet, make a backswing the length of 1 putter head, and a follow-through the length of 2 putter heads. The asymmetry, more follow-through than backswing, forces acceleration through the ball. Your face stays square. Your ball goes in. I missed about 18% of my 3-footers before I started doing this drill regularly. I miss about 4% now. The math on those numbers across 30 rounds in a season is roughly 11 saved strokes per season for an investment of 90 seconds before every round. There is no better return on investment in golf than this drill. Now for the part I promised at the beginning. The single decision rule a teaching pro at a club in Scottsdale gave me, that if you remember nothing else from this video, will save you 3 strokes by your next round. He called it the 60% rule. Before every shot, you ask yourself one question. Can I execute this shot 60% of the time? Not on a range, not on a perfect day, not in a video. Right now, with the wind I am feeling, the lie I have, the pressure I am under, the club in my hand, can I hit this shot 60% of the time? If the answer is yes, swing. If the answer is no, find a shot you can hit 60% of the time. That is it. That is the rule. The 60% threshold is high enough to challenge you and low enough that you are not just laying up on every shot. The first time I applied this rule for an entire round, I shot 78. My previous 5 rounds had averaged 84. The swing did not change. The decisions did. The pro told me he gives this rule to every new student before they pay him for a single lesson, because he says if they apply it for 3 months, they save more strokes than he can teach them in a year. He was not wrong. I want to leave you with one thing. Every shot on this list is a decision, not a swing. You already have the swing to break 80 or break 90 or break whatever number you are chasing. What you do not have yet is the discipline to make the boring choice 12 times per round. The boring choice is the 6-iron from the rough. The boring choice is the full lob wedge instead of the half sand wedge. The boring choice is the center of the green instead of the sucker pin. The boring choice is 18 inches past the hole on every lag putt. None of these are exciting. None of these get likes on Instagram. All of them work. Pick 3 from this list to apply next round. Just 3. Track them on the back of your scorecard. I would bet money you shoot lower than your average, not because of new mechanics. Because of new decisions. Go play.